Hey everybody, Angela Arlina with Your Natural Dog, and my guest today, Katya Forsyth, is an expert on soil and nematodes. What are those, you ask? Well, they're a wonderful way to treat your lawn, your yard, with an all-natural way to get rid of fleas. So they're going to talk to us all about how this works, how you can get them, put them in your yard, and how it is such a better alternative than these very dangerous chemicals and pesticides we find in our flea and tick treatments for our pets. So stay tuned. Coming up next.
This is Odie, my baby old man, aka Barky von Schnauzer. He's 11 years old and the love of my life. So Odie's favorite thing is to run up the stairs at night when we go to bed, and I noticed a couple years ago that he would stop midway up, and that's when I knew he was suffering from arthritis and joint pain. So the only treatments that I was being offered were harmful prescription drugs that cause liver damage and suppress the immune system, and I just wasn't willing to do that for my senior dog. And full spectrum CBD oil was the only thing that worked. I would give it to him, and literally within 15 minutes, he was puppy-like again. I could see that he wasn't in pain, he wasn't panting, he was running up the stairs. So on Odie, I use Ease, which is a 550 milligram full spectrum CBD oil with frankincense essential oil, turmeric, and hemp oil. And it's great for arthritis, aches and pains, and allergies. No one likes to see their dog suffer. I know I didn't. And to be able to find an all-natural product that doesn't cause additional harm and helps them is a lifesaver for me, and it brings me so much peace of mind. CBD Dog Health, healing naturally.
And we're back with Katya Forsyth, who, I love it. I feel like you should have like a superhero costume on because of your product, Flea Destroyer. I love it. It's awesome. Thank you so much for being with me today, and I love it. I know some things, but you are the expert in this field, and I love it, so I can't wait to talk to you about this. But I'm going to act like just the typical pet parent, maybe not the typical one. I'm definitely the holistic one. I literally have a video on what to do when you find a flea on your dog. But I want to ask you your opinion. Why is it so hard to get rid of these darn fleas?
That's a great question. And also, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here and to talk to you.
You bet it.
But definitely, I think that one of the biggest issues why you keep seeing recurring flea problems is that people don't realize that fleas come from outside. And that's where you need to treat the problem at the source to stop the flea life cycle. Also, earlier on in the cycle, most flea treatments that we see attack the adult flea, which is only 5% of all of the entire flea population at any given time. So definitely treating the outside, treating other stages of the flea life cycle, and also treating them in a way that is regenerative, that continues to grow. Most outdoor treatments are pesticides, and even if they're not pesticides, they either repel the flea, or you have to keep applying it every month or every couple of weeks. And that's because they're not really going along with the logic of nature. The logic of nature is that everything that's out there has a predator. Everything is both a predator and prey. And so fleas, their natural predator is the beneficial nematode. And so that's what we're selling. And the Flea Destroyer, and beneficial nematodes, they eat the flea, they kill the flea, they eat the flea, they reproduce inside of the flea. And so their population grows every time that they protect your yard. So
awesome. So I learned about nematodes when I got into organic gardening and would use certain ones that were, for pests that were taking over my squash or my watermelon or whatever, because I was trying to do it organically. So I know how I've used them for that, but have never used them for fleas. What the heck are they that they can do this? Are they like little creatures?
Yeah, so they're microscopic worms. They're non-segmented, so they're too small to see with the human eye, but you can see them underneath a microscope. And yeah, you release them into the soil, and they go after 230 different kinds of pests. So a lot of them are used in organic gardening, but they're also super effective on fleas. They love to eat fleas. But since they also have all this other prey, you don't really need to worry about feeding them. They make their own way in the soil.
So how do you know where to sprinkle them? All over your yard? Are they like little living creatures in that box behind you? So we get them and then we sprinkle it all
to show you how they come?
Yeah.
Beneficial nematodes.
And they're alive in there, right? Oh,
they are. They're dormant. But they are alive. Nematodes are.
Is it like sea monkeys? Remember sea monkeys? The little things that you would like put in the little worms that would come alive. I think I'm aging.
Well, they're smaller than sea monkeys.
Okay, smaller than sea monkeys.
Smaller than sea monkeys, so you're not going to see them. And they also can't. They can't exist outside. Let's see. They can't exist inside of the body of anything larger than a larva. Right, so they can go in and they kill larvae, but they aren't going to survive in your stomach. They're not going to survive in your pet's stomach. They can't even survive inside of a earthworm.
Wow,
they're really.
So it has to be larva.
Has to be larva. So they come in this box, and when you open this box, what you see is vermiculite, and that's because the nematodes are suspended right here in the middle of this vermiculite. It's 10 million in this little box, so
wow,
very small. And it comes with this cheesecloth bag. So you pour the vermiculite mixture into the cheesecloth bag and you soak it in water for about an hour, massaging the bag, getting the nematodes to swim out into the water. They love water. And then you apply that to your yard. Now, this box covers 2,000 square feet. So if you have a, small to medium-sized yard, spray it all over your yard. That's great. If you have a really large yard, then we recommend applying it to the same place where fleas like to hang out. So if you think about it, that's usually places that are shadier, places where animals like to be, places that are a little bit moist. And that's the same environment that nematodes love. So nematodes like to be cool, not hot, not freezing. They like to have a little bit of moisture in their soil. And if the conditions aren't right for that, they're just going to burrow down further into the subterranean areas to get more comfortable.
Awesome. And how long, like you said, that the more that they eat, the more that they grow and procreate. So do you do this once and it lasts forever, or do you do it like once a year? How do you apply it?
So we recommend once a year. That also depends sort of on your climate. So like I mentioned, they don't like it when it's freezing. They also don't like extreme heat or drought. So if you I
live in Florida, and we're now, I'm in Florida, so I'm year-round flea season now, and I hate it.
Right.
And it's funny because I even remember 10 years ago, oh my gosh, it's more than that, like 15 years ago, I remember talking to vets who were saying that the fleas were becoming immune to the pesticides anyway. And they were advising, if it doesn't work, give them another pill. Or switch a brand and give them another whatever. And it was like, oh my gosh, now we're giving them a cocktail of things and that's still not solving the problem.
Right. So in places like Florida, what we recommend is applying it right after your most intense season. So right after hurricane season, apply this and it should be good for a year. If you want to give it a little boost, apply it twice a year, once every 6 months. But the idea is that when the weather gets bad, they're going to burrow down into the soil. And when the weather gets better, some of them are going to come back up, but some of them are happy to stay down there. So you want to sort of give a boost to the population. And that's the great thing is that fleas aren't going to develop a resistance to beneficial nematodes. They've evolved together for millions of years. So
why, if that's the case, why do we have so many fleas and not enough nematodes? Because we're destroying them?
Yeah, it has something to do with the pesticides that everyone's been applying to get rid of the fleas and to get rid of everything else. What people don't realize about pesticides, or maybe they do realize this, but they don't make the connection, is that when you apply the pesticide to kill the flea, you also kill everything else in the soil. You've killed the entire community underneath the soil. And so there's no good guys to keep the bad guys in check. So the only thing that can survive in a dead environment is a parasite. It's a blood-sucking parasite.
Wow. Stuff that makes you go, and that you don't ever think of. That's amazing. How in the world did you decide this is what you wanted to do? How did you learn about this and go, oh my God, why isn't anybody doing this? Because it's true. I didn't even put the two together thinking about the same beneficial nematodes that I would use in my organic garden would be the same that I can get rid of my fleas in. So that's amazing. So how the heck did you discover it?
So I did my master's degree in environmental science and policy. And before that, I had done a permaculture design course. And I had learned about how you can use all these different elements of nature, put them next to each other, and they support one another. And I was like, whoa.
What do they call it? What do they call it then when that happens? Because that's the same thing that happens like where I learned. The same when my mind got blown is same thing. I can put hemp, cannabis with ashwagandha and reishi and create something even more powerful and magic because they're so synergistic. So it's the same type of thing.
Yeah, I don't know what to call that. Maybe it's just magic. Maybe we just call it magic.
Energy. Yeah. Synergy and magic.
Exactly. Harmony, creating those relationships, building healthy communities. So that's how I got into it. I worked in compost. I'm really passionate about soil health, and I want to find new pathways for, everyone to realize that they can be a part of the solution. A lot of people, I think, are overwhelmed by the problems that are happening today. And they're like, well, I just have a dog. Like, I'm not going to start organic gardening. I'm not going to build soil health in my backyard. And it's like, but you can. And you can help your dog and you can help your planet.
Yeah. And not only are you helping your dog and your planet, you'll find so many other ways to help yourself and your family. And you're keeping these poisons out of your home. That's what I think people don't understand. If you're giving your dog a pesticide through a pill or you're squirting it on their back or you're spraying it on them, it doesn't just hurt your dog and stay on your dog. It gets on everything your dog touches. It comes out of their pores. It gets on your children. It gets in your pools, your lakes. We were talking about this before we got on air about how, and I learned this from Rodney Habib, where he said that there were certain chemicals that are being used in pesticides that are banned in England because so many lakes and streams where fish were dying, all the vegetation in the lake was dying, that community was dying, and water, and they couldn't figure it out, and they tested the water, and it was these chemicals that were coming off of the dogs getting in the lakes and rivers. So that's how easily it comes off and how it can wreck an entire ecosystem. But for whatever reason in the United States, these chemicals are still allowed to be put on our pets. And I know you know about the dangerous chemicals more than I do. So what are some of these chemicals and what effects do they have on our families and our environment?
So one of the studies that I've been reading about in California is about bifenthrin. And bifenthrin is a chemical that's in the pyrethroid class. So there's so many different names for it. So it's hard to even say like, oh, this is the chemical to watch out for, because they have a million different names to sort of skirt around everything. But they did a test around Sacramento and they found bifenthrin in 23 out of 24 creeks. So if you just think about it, this is a pesticide that is mostly used for flea control, and it's used in topicals and ointments and outdoor flea control. It's also used probably in other pesticide applications, but it just ends up being everywhere and it bioaccumulates. So once it gets into the water, right, then it starts getting soaked up by the microorganisms and by the plants. And then the fish start eating it. And then there's a little bit more toxicity in the fish. And then the fish, either people eat it, or birds eat it. And there's a little bit more toxicity in the birds or in the people. And so it just keeps going. And the sad thing is that even though this goes through wastewater treatment plants, there's no way to get rid of it. Like the wastewater treatment plants don't actually have a process for getting rid of it. There are probably, long-term biofilter type things that if you get the right microorganisms, they'll break them down, but we just keep pumping this into the system and there isn't time for the world to actually digest it and break it down.
So nematodes only go after pests, meaning other beneficial, because there's beneficial insects and larvae too. So it doesn't bother those. It only bothers the blood-sucking ones, or Like, how does it know which one to eat, which one not to eat?
So there are millions of different kinds of nematodes, right? So we have two in ours, Steyronema falciae and Steyronema carpocapsae.
Okay, so there are different kinds. Got it.
So many different kinds, like millions of different kinds of nematodes. It's so fun to talk to a nematologist about them. But so these two kinds of nematodes, the things that they see as prey are coincidentally a lot of the things that we see as pests. So Japanese beetles, fire ants, fleas, fungus rats, fire ants. Yeah.
Change my life.
That's what I want to do. But it's also sort of this complex system when you think about nature, right? It's a whole web of life. So out of the 230 insects that nematodes go after, I am not sure that not one of those grubs isn't a little bit beneficial to some plant. I can't promise that, but I can tell you that the way that nature works is it's this like really intricate, crazy, dramatic balance of all of these living organisms sort of battling it out. And if you have a choice between adding life to help enhance life versus mass kill destruction of everything, I would really recommend that you go along with the slightly more complex, interesting system.
I agree. I couldn't agree more. How fast will... Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, it's just, let me add one more thing on the beneficial insects. Luckily, a lot of the beneficial insects that we think about don't fit into this category of what nematodes can actually attack. So I mentioned they go after insect larvae. So earthworms, for example, are segmented worms, don't have a larval state, won't be attacked by nematodes. Bees and ladybugs, a lot of these that live above the ground, the nematodes can't get to them, so they're not going to go for them. Butterflies, same thing. Their whole stages are above the ground. So in a lot of these ways, it's just, it's really convenient. It's like a really convenient balance in nature.
Yeah, it's so, I mean, from what I do, all I do is try to go back to how nature intended it, you know? For instance, dogs, have already researched and shown that they have like double the receptors we do. And you have to ask yourself, why? Well, that's probably because they were treating themselves out in the wild with hemp, growing in the wild. So I always try to go back to nature, and this just makes sense to me. It's like almost everything that we are being marketed to use is a dangerous, made-up chemical, and not nature would do it in the first place. So I really feel like this is completely getting back to, we're starting with the dirt. What more can you start with? That's starting from the very beginning. And that's where we start when we grow our hemp and our mushrooms is what are they eating? What are they growing from? And that makes a lot of sense. And that's why it's so important to keep your little environment in your backyard healthy. I mean, I live on a lake. I know I live on a lake with other people, and so I'm constantly concerned about the pesticides and everything running off from their lawns into the lake. And all I want to say is, you swim in this lake. Do you want to swim in pesticides? No, you don't. And we already had overgrowth of, vegetation that, big fight. Do we put poison in? No, you will not put poison in. Let's find fish. Okay, we got the fish. Make sure these fish aren't going to eat other fish and change everything. So it's always a very delicate balance, for sure.
But it's so much more interesting than just trying to kill everything all at once.
I know. And also, I just don't think we don't know that's what we're doing. Yeah, we don't know that's what we're doing.
We have such a crazy line between like alive and dead. We think like humans are alive, our pets are alive, but most other things are like less alive.
Right.
And so I think
not as important.
Like the soil is alive, the plants are alive, and we can help build that life and be a part of that life and connect with it.
All right. So I'm going to spray my yard. Okay. How do I distribute it all over my yard? It's now water. And so like I spray it like a liquid, fertilizer or something like that. I don't use fertilizer, so I don't know. You can think of like one of those things where you put attach it to the hose kind of thing.
Hose and sprayer.
Okay.
Yes.
So one of those. So I spray it all over. How quickly will I see no more fleas?
You should see results in 72 hours.
Awesome.
It takes about 24 to 48 hours for them to find the fleas and another 24 to 48 hours for them to kill the fleas. That's how long the bacteria takes to be effective and to kill the larva. But yeah, you should see results pretty much immediately and continuously for months. And the great thing is that, even if your pets are flea free and your backyard is flea free, if you have, a squirrel come by,
I have
wild cat or something. Yeah, and they drop off some flea eggs, they're going to get eaten right up by the nematodes.
That is awesome. I cannot wait to try this. And these are only go in the yard. We're not putting these on the animals, not putting it in our home. They got to go have something to eat and find them unless we have a whole bunch of larvae in our home, which would not be good. But it's something that we just put in our yard.
Yeah, people ask me that. It's totally safe for your pet in your house. If you have, plants in your house, you can put it in those plants. It'll help with the fungus gnats that you might get.
Cool.
Your pet could take a bath in nematode water if you wanted to leave them there for a while. But no, we recommend it. We recommend it for outside.
So it is perfectly safe. It's just recommended to go where the majority of the fleas are found.
Right, where the flea larvae are hanging out outside.
Okay, awesome. We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about this and why it's important to avoid putting these chemicals on our pets and in our home when we come back.
This is Daisy. She's our 17-year-old rescue, and her owner surrendered her to the veterinarian because she couldn't walk anymore. And the vet gave us a call, and we rescued her, brought her to our rescue farm here. We took her off all of her prescription medications. She was having seizures every day, grand mal seizures. She had no hair on her feet, on her tail. And we have her on a CBD regimen, and she has come back alive. She's become puppy-like. She runs around and plays, and she could live to be 20 years old and live a very long, happy, pain-free life. CBD Dog Health, healing naturally.
And we're back with Katya Forsyth, who's created a nematode called Flea Destroyer. I don't know why I can't say it like a normal person, which is an all-natural way to control fleas in your yard, your home, everywhere. It's a product that you use not a product. It's a little creature that is that you put in your yard that eats flea larvae, which we were just saying. Sorry, I had a bug fly by. We didn't talk about the flea cycle, but so that everyone knows, will you tell everyone what the flea cycle is? Because I know you said that, when we see the flea on our pet, that's only 5% of the population, that most of it is out there in your yard, and it requires a lot more than just putting a spray on.
Yeah. So here, I have actually a little graphic that I can show you guys right here. This is that
cool.
box. And so this shows the adult flea, and then the adult flea lays the eggs, which hatch into the larva, which then go through the pupa stage and then go into the adult flea. So the adult flea is only 5% of the life cycle. Eggs are 50% of the life cycle, but that other 45% are 35% larva and 10% pupa. And those two are the sweet spot that nematodes love to go after. So this way you can break the life cycle before they jump onto your pet, and also avoid all of the negative impacts of just flea bites that have to happen. Or a lot of topicals.
Oh, I actually have one. Yeah, I have a dog that's so allergic to flea bites. The flea saliva, it's crazy. She will eat herself up if a flea gets on her. And it is. We find one flea once in a while, but it's because I live in the woods, and we have every creature that comes through our yard that you can imagine. And my chickens help, but not enough. Does it help with ticks?
It's sort of up in the air. In laboratory settings, we've seen nematodes infect ticks. In the wild, it's a little bit more like, maybe if you have enough nematodes in your yard, they'll go after the ticks. But it basically, ticks are arachnids. And like I said, the nematodes like to go after insects, which are two different categories. So we recommend like using nematodes, but we don't specifically say that they will definitely help with ticks because we're still trying to figure that out. Now, if you apply nematodes and you have a great response with a decrease in the tick population, call me. Like, let me know.
Yeah, that would be nice. So how do you as a environmentalist control ticks? What would you recommend or what have you found?
Like, I am not an expert on ticks. I think that there's other control methods that you can have, and nematodes will help. I think that probably chickens are a good idea, but to have other life out there that likes to eat small animals like that.
I think that's why I don't have ticks.
Like
yeah, I have armadillos and possums and a lot of chickens, and so I don't really, thank goodness, don't have to deal with ticks, just fleas. Lots and lots of fleas is constantly, has always been, because now it doesn't even get cold enough for them to freeze or go away. So it's just year round now. It's crazy. I do want to talk about some of the chemicals again, just so that people understand why we want them to treat their yard naturally instead of bringing these chemicals into their home. And you were talking about, like, I would say a couple months ago, we just had a recall on a Hart's flea shampoo that killed a dog and was recalled and taken off the market. And I want people to also understand that shampoo is probably just going to be slightly reformulated and re-released and have the same dangerous chemical that was in there before. So a lot of the over-the-counter that you can buy, like at PetSmart and Amazon, are very dangerous. And when I have groom shops. I don't know if you know this. So I know a lot about what happens when we put warm water on a dog and when we wash them with chemicals. And I had a reaction to the chemicals that were just cleaning the dog, much less flea and tick. I have read the ingredients to these flea and tick shampoos, and they are scary. I would never put them on my dog. I bought my groom shop. So that's how I discovered all these terrible shampoos and things and was like, yep, we're getting rid of all of these. If they're causing me irritation, I can't imagine washing their face with it and putting it all over their skin, our biggest organ. And, you know, dogs have 3 layers and it's very absorbent and all of those chemicals are going right into them. And it makes a difference what you put on them. You were mentioning a dog that recently died from, I don't know how to say it.
Bifenthrin. And so that's
just one of those chemicals.
So that's one of the chemicals that we were talking about earlier. Also, that's prevalent in a lot of different over-the-counter shampoos, topicals, ointments, and pesticides that you apply to your yard for flea control. And this was in 2019. It was a 5-year-old dog that died like within hours of being exposed to the pesticide out in the yard. They were off leash, just spent 15 to 20 minutes rolling around in the grass that had recently been treated, started having seizures, cardiac arrest, and died like hours later at the vet. So yeah, especially I love that you mentioned the thing about the absorbency of the skin. I think that's another thing we don't think about. We put on makeup, we put on ointments, we put on all this scented stuff. We're like, oh, it's fine. It's my skin. It's not my organ. It's my skin. Like, no, that's your biggest organ. The same thing is true for dogs. Same thing is true for cats. I also think that we talk a lot about dogs when we talk about flea control. Cats get overlooked a lot of the time. A lot of the applications, even the natural applications for cats, are not safe for them because they lick themselves so much. So Flea Destroyer is a great option also for cats. You're going to apply it to your outdoor area. Again, the nematodes can't survive inside of your pet's stomach. If they get onto your pet's fur, like, they'll just fall back off. They're not trying. They they couldn't break through the skin anyways.
Yeah, I think it's so. I think all this information is so important. One of the services that we offer are online consultations, and constantly, it was one story after another where a perfectly healthy dog suddenly experiences a seizure. And we always ask, what happened that day? And some parents are very savvy. He just got his vaccinations. We just put his flea and tick on. The yard got sprayed, whatever it is. But I don't think people understand how often this occurs, where a perfectly healthy dog just has a reaction and we don't even know why. And 9 times out of 10, it's a chemical. And if your dog is genetically predisposed with some sort of issue, this will trigger an autoimmune disease or whatever disease that they're genetically predisposed to. So I just want everyone to understand how important it is. I pretty much live a chemical-free life, or try my best to not have any in my yard, on me, on my pets, and any of my personal care products. It is a long journey. It is a lot of work. I'm sure chemicals still make it into my life one way or another, but it's nice to know that I pretty much can find an alternative to everything. I don't know if you know about it, but my favorite website on earth is ewg.org, the Environmental Working Group. They literally have a cosmetic database, a cleaning database that you literally can type in any product and it will tell you whether it has harmful chemicals in it. And then they will also recommend products that have they don't recommend them. They just show you that the products that don't have any chemicals in them. I can't wait to one day have this for pets, so that we could literally do the same thing and put any product in and do it. Maybe between you and I know our friends at Four Legger have done a lot of work on the shampoo and grooming product side. I feel like I'm doing it nonstop on drugs, which I'll never be able to catch up with. But that's why I do what I do. Is I'd much rather give them the all natural thing that existed in nature, instead of someone trying to make a lot of money off that thing in nature and take one little isolated compound of it, patent it, and make billions of dollars. I want to find nature, and I really appreciate you finding nature and sharing this information. I can't wait to put your flea destroyer all over my yard. Thank you for joining us so much. How do our listeners find out more about you and your products?
So they can follow us we're on Instagram, we're on LinkedIn, we're on Facebook. Instagram, it's Flea Destroyer _official. Everything else is just Flea Destroyer. We have a website. You can go to fleadestroyer.com. We have clinical studies up there that people can read if they're interested in. If you'd like, you can email me. I'm info@fleadestroyer.com. You can call us 310-952-5047. And then we're also available on Dr. Judy Morgan's Naturally Healthy Pets if you want to order us online from there.
Awesome. So are we.
Yay.
We love Dr. Judy. Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us again. Really appreciate your information. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Angela. It's been great.